He was a product of the Halifax system, went to Halifax for a spell, now found his way at Toronto. He came in to replace Chase Stanley late on. He was drafted in late and gets a brace of tries and had an impressive game as well. So lots of positive talking points from a Toronto perspective. But for Halifax...
That's what I was going to ask. Is there pressure now in the Halifax and within that club, given their form this year so
It's
far?
a really good question. I don't like to put coaches or players under pressure, but the reality is, Halifax are a side that, yes, they've probably punched above their weight in recent seasons, have been the big overachievers in the championship, but have arguably been the best part-time team in the championship over the last couple of seasons. So there is expectation probably on that team and on that coach and his players to continue to progress and continue to improve, but it hasn't been the start of the season that themselves or their fans would have hoped for. But I'm confident that Richard Marshall and his coaching abilities, that he can turn that team and get them back playing well enough to get some results. But certainly their form has been scratchy at best in this early part of the season, but there is time, and the fans and the club need to stick behind their coach and their players and have the confidence that they can turn that around.
Yes, certainly that will be the case. Also, another big scoreline was Widnes Vikings 50, Rochdale Hornets just 4.
Wowzers, yeah.
A bit tough for Rochdale so far for 2019. As for Widnes, well, they've got rid of that -12 deficit given off after they went into administration. That certainly is looking pretty positive for them in a club that was only a couple of weeks ago in turmoil.
Oh, massive result for them now to be on that 0 points. 6 wins. They're back on the level playing field now. Fantastic for Coach Purtell and his men. And again, it was a demolition act, wasn't it? They were rampant in that game. I think it was 28-4 at half time, and then second half 22 points to 0. So Ryan Ince 4 tries, now becomes the leading try scorer in the championship. Fantastic for him, taking his tries well. But, for Rochdale, I feel a little bit for them, but I know they don't have the budget of a lot of these other clubs in the championship, and they are up against it. But, they did compete well for about 25-30 minutes. They were competing. They showed some signs there that there was some effort, and they were trying, so it was not down to lack of effort. But, the Widnes have just got too much class and quality in there. And once they got that little bit of their foothold into the game and got that bit of momentum,
throw the ball around and they can just run away with it.
Yeah, they got that momentum. They were too hard to stop, and it's just unfortunate in the second half that Rochdale couldn't sort of galvanise to make the scoreline respectable, and Widnes just continued to play with confidence and belief, and scored some fantastic tries. And wow, Ryan Ince 4 tries on the day. That's a fantastic effort.
Well, York City Knights suffered their only second defeat of the season. Their first one coming back all the way in round 1.
Yep.
Sheffield Eagles 24, York City Knights 16. Just wasn't the day for York City Knights.
No, it wasn't. And I'm going to turn to my mate, the cameraman Joe, who's a big York fan. And I've been doing it, Joe, haven't I? I've been tipping against York every week.
It's been working.
Unfortunately, it hasn't worked this week. Maybe it's because I mentioned it last week. That's
Maybe
probably
you're
been
just
the
doing
curse.
that because I took York and
well,
you just
I don't know. I don't know. But listen, in all honesty, York have had a fantastic season so far. To be promoted from League One,
they have surprised many as well.
Absolutely, they have been the surprise packer, and they've been worthy of it too. Though it's not like they've been just fluking these wins. They've been playing some really good football. They've been hard to break down. Been stubborn defensively, and also with the ball, they've asked some questions of the opposition, and all their results, they've thoroughly deserved. But obviously, there's going to be a time where they're not going to go through the season unbeaten, are they? So they had to get beat at some point, and it was obviously the turn of the Sheffield Eagles to do that, who in their own rights are in decent form, have recruited well in the close season, and they're going to be there or thereabouts in the mix to come the back end. So it's no shame for York to have lost to a very good Sheffield side at home. Again, another fantastic turnout at Bootham Crescent, and they're really starting to draw the crowds in. They're doing a lot of really good things, with their off-field marketing and community projects, as well as what they're doing on the field. It certainly all helps, doesn't it, when your first team's playing well, you've got the other things going well. They all work well together, and I think the York club's got a real bright future over there. And
they could really be at the end of the season. They could really give some of those teams that are at the top of the leaderboard, aka Toronto, Wolfpack, and also to Toulouse, a bit of a run for their money and really throw in the competition and keep it quite close towards the back end of the season.
Absolutely, but hey, there's still a long way to go. There's still a lot of games to go, so I don't want to jinx them too much. But at the moment, they're in a good place.
Positive.
They're playing really good football. If they can maintain those standards and bounce back, their task now is to show that bounce back ability next week and get themselves back on the horse and continue to build moving forward. But they've got every right, if they do get into the business end at the back end, to be a threat to some of these teams, because they're a good side.
Well, Hendo, it is a little bit different. Usually we'll be previewing the next round, but of course this week is a little bit different because it is the Coral Challenge Cup. Certainly exciting time. Round 4, so now the championship teams get involved.
Yes.
Let's take a look now at the matchups and what's really stands out to you, Hendo.
Well, looking at these fixtures for me, Eloise, I think the first one looks tasty. Barrow Raiders at home to the York City Knights. You know, just cast your mind back to earlier in the championship season. York absolutely thrashed Barrow, I think 56 points to 0. So I think the Raiders will be very determined to deliver a performance, certainly off the back of losing to Swinton this week. They are at home. They owe their home fans a performance. And this could be the competition. Sometimes with clubs and teams that aren't in great form in their league campaigns, they can really use the Challenge Cup as an opportunity to reinvigorate their season or bring them together or gain some confidence or momentum and belief. So it's a really important time, certainly for the Barrow Raiders club and its team. So that one looks a tasty fixture. Moving on, I think looking at the other fixtures, Keighley hosting the Bradford Bulls will be a classic game because they're two local rivals.
So the crowd will be loud.
Absolutely, and it's great for the Keighley club because Bradford will bring a huge travelling support. It's just down the road, so that's going to generate some good income and revenue for them as a club, for that League One club. But, you know, I'll take my hat off here. Keighley will really challenge Bradford, and sometimes I know they're in the different divisions. Keighley a League One side, Bradford obviously a championship side, but Keighley will leave no stone unturned and they'll give a good account of themselves on the weekend. But I do see Bradford probably nicking it. But it'll be a great day out for both sets of fans. Good banter, good rivalry, and there should be a good crowd there too. Fantastic.
Lastly, the last one that stands out to you, Hendo?
Yeah, finally, I think this one looks great, doesn't it? It's got all the makings for a classic. The Sheffield Eagles at home to the Lee Centurions. Now,
Lee bouncing off a big loss as well. How will they respond, but also going into a Challenge Cup game?
Absolutely. Well, like you said, they've come off a disappointing performance against the Bradford Bulls. We saw Coach Duffy's comments in the press afterwards. He wasn't too pleased.
He apologised to his fans.
Apologised to his fans, as you said. So he's looking for a response. Now, the key for me is that with Lee Centurions is they have a lot of players on loan from St Helens who I think will not be able to play because they'll be cup tied. I think Saints will pull back their players from dual reg and on loan for this weekend. So that's actually could affect the Lee Centurions squad in terms of who they have available to select, because they've been building some really good combinations in recent weeks with this introduction of a host of St Helens players. It all depends on the Saints club. I would assume that they will pull those players back so they are not cup tied for future Challenge Cup rounds, which that may play its part in terms of Lee. So it's a real challenge now for the Centurions. Can they galvanise with obviously missing some players, which I think potentially is going to happen, and then can they deliver a response that's needed against the Sheffield Eagles side, who, knowing Mark Aston as I do, will want to get on a great club run. He's one of the tightest men in rugby league, so he'll want to get the money from the future round. So he's going to want to go as far as he can. But also, he's a proud man. He's a fantastic history in the Challenge Cup, being a player that's won the Lance Todd Trophy as well. So he's going to want to make sure he's involved as far as they can go. So I think it's got all the makings for a great Challenge Cup tie there at Sheffield on the weekend.
Thanks so much for your time here on the Championship Wrap. Andrew Henderson, thanks so much for your time. Great insight into the game of rugby league, and enjoy the game this weekend with the Challenge Cup, of course, round 4 kicking off. And next week we will be back to preview round 9. And of course, look at some of those games that we've seen, or we've just spoken about them for the Coral Challenge Cup, and seeing how the team's fared.
Absolutely.